So we're talking about the internet tonight. The lesson itself is about this Silverton teen who thinks they're chatting with somebody that they aren't. Actually, it's not a high school kid. It's not somebody from a nearby school. You read the narrative, and they escaped a dangerous situation. And the first question talked about, what did you think about this story? And I'm just going to breeze over this story altogether. I want to jump to number 2, about your computer usage. And I had to go check the date on the book, right? Do you have a computer at home? Do you have access to the internet? Can you use the internet without being supervised, right? And this was 2001, which again, if you've been around for a little while, doesn't sound that long ago. But 2001, we were still doing 1.5 megabits per second, which might not mean anything to you, whereas today homes can get 1 gigabit, 1024 times 1024 of those megabits. So things have changed massively, and so when we talk about having access to a computer, I think about some of the lessons at that time. They were about the kind of games we play, and about the internet. It was just about the graphic 8-bit violence that was there. And then we move into today. What is your computer usage? Yeah, it's your phone. It's in your pocket. It's on your wrist. It's in your car. It's on every device you touch. Everything needs rebooted. And so everything is a computer, and most everything we have is on the internet. There's a word we talk about, IoT. You guys ever heard IoT? The Internet of Things. Everything is on the internet. And so I found the question interesting, but it leads me to that bigger question then of how is communicating? And really, again, I prepped for a high school class where we all sit in a circle and there's a lot of discussion. So parents, you can look up at your high schoolers. They're in here. They can help with that discussion. And if you have a comment, raise your hand because there is a mic. But how has communication changed? How is communicating different with the internet?
So many ways to...
Hold on.
Wait on this.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
You're right.
So many ways to... there's going to be a lot of discussion on this, but the first thing that I think of is when you look at communicating through the internet, it's less personal. And I've seen, I'm thinking of teenagers, and you don't have the gumption to break up face to face. You send a text and then you're off to the next one, regardless of what it does to that individual. Yeah. That maybe you broke up with. That was a kind of a personal thing with one of my grandkids, and and you'll say things that way that you wouldn't say face to face. And I think as Christians, as much of our conversations that can be, whatever, especially when there's something in dispute, needs to be face to face. Because that way you get to see expressions, you feel emotions. It's not abstract. And
really good comments.
That's a broad brush of, to me, and I think you're probably going to get a generation that doesn't do a good job of interacting with each other.
Right. Right.
So
and they're much more adept. I see. No, you're great. Yeah. Dennis has a comment. I think about the emoji usage, right? Like I still don't use a lot of emojis because I don't talk about things that need to show expression. Go ahead, Dennis. How's it different?
The thing I thought about was context. There are things that I could say to you wherever in a joking way that you know what I mean. It's very hard for that to come across in a text. I see that all the time. I'm actually on a group text with some of the other managers, and you get things said, and you have to wonder, well, what did they mean? Yeah. Did they mean that as a joke, or is somebody poking somebody? And we have to be careful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Raise your hand if you've ever taken something the wrong way that was online.
Well,
whether it was social media, text, whatever.
I was just going to say, if you use one exclamation too many, I didn't know that was a problem.
Right.
Found out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Katie. How is it different?
So millennials that are 30 and over are the computer sandwich generation. So I remember when we got our first computer, it was huge and ugly and it was very slow. But we remember, we have a difference with that, especially going in with the Gen Z, because we still do remember you had to actually talk to someone. I mean, AOL, Instant Messenger, it blew the world up, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was in junior high that happened. And so now I think we have a difference, not just communicating differently on the internet, but you have a difference between generations, how you communicate, because like our parents never communicated online until they were in their 30s.
Yeah.
My generation started communicating online when we were in our teens. These guys started communicating online from infancy.
Yeah. From the tablet stuck in their
So,
hand.
yeah, so there's such a huge difference, not just communicating on the internet to in person, but communicating in person to someone of a different generation.
Good point. Very good point. So we have generational divides. We have, again, I think when I go back to some of the root of what, I think there's a good part of us going back and looking at nostalgically what it was and how we got to where we are. I don't want to lose where that conversation starts in our mind because we forget how different it was at that time than what it is today. But I think the big emphasis we need to take away from this too is that how we communicate is truly different. Context was mentioned. Gian has a comment here in a second. Context was mentioned. When somebody texts me, I don't just see the one text. I do see that chain and that history, and I'm trying to figure out how does this relate to the last thing we talked about. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Go ahead, Gene.
To go along the lines of what we're saying, and I agree 100%, I could just imagine down the road, you're going to have a husband and wife sitting in the den texting each other instead of...
Come on, man. That hurts. Yeah, I've done that. Go ahead.
But the point I want to make is, I think the biggest danger is going to be with the kids. I mean, I've got grandkids, and then they're up in their room, working, and I know this one guy, I hardly ever saw him when I drove 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
So if parents are not talking to the kids and they're not talking, then I think that's the real danger.
Yeah. Yeah, we lose that communication. I see another hand, Rita.
I think it's made for a much ruder, is that a word, culture. It's real easy to say something nasty to somebody online, and not quite as easy to say it to your face. And I think I think that has really changed our culture, what we think is acceptable to say to other people.
Yeah.
And I'm really big on this one and not just blaming the kids because, I look at adults on Facebook, and I look at Christians and Facebook, and I mean, I think it's awful, I mean, how many of us would go up to someone on the street and just immediately start telling them, how smart our kids are and how great our kids are and what we ate for supper last night and what happened at the grocery store and how mad you were at the guy who, double parked, and it's just, I just think it's made for a very self-centered, rude society.
Absolutely. And I think that gets into the dangers that are here. So I remember when social media became a big thing for us at business, it wasn't just, individuals. It's like, okay, we need to have a presence. And pretty soon, we need to have a social media policy. I'm thinking we have a behavior policy. That behavior policy covers wherever you are in a digital or physical context. If you're acting this way towards someone, it's wrong. I don't care if you did it on the street corner or you did it online. And so in so many ways, the internet enables us to sin more easily. But you could sin in all these same ways in real life, IRL, right? It's the same things. The sins are the same, but it makes it easier. That would be my argument. In what ways do you see that the internet truly helps it make it easier for us to sin?
It's right here. It's literally in your fingertips all the time. Whether it's pornography, whether it's just the lust of things, Amazon, I can click, get it here today, charge it on your charge card, whatever it is, like, There's no restraint with the internet. It leaves you completely exposed to any desire that you have.
Why is that? Why is there less restraint in that world? What is it that's gone that makes it easier? All right, personal accountability was the comment. And I think that's such a huge piece of it. I remember, again, when I'm thinking about that 2001, I think I had just graduated from college, late 99, and I remember going to the internet part of the library where you got on the computers, right, and you'd put your disk in and save stuff on it. And I remember seeing guys surfing stuff on the library computers, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Like right here in public? And Ryan's absolutely right. There was no shame there for some, but there was shame for many others. But now that you stick it in your pocket, shame. Shame has been removed. When public shame, and Mark made the comment right before the class, feeling shame is a really great motivator sometimes. But when we lose shame, when shame is taken out of the equation, it is so much more easier, so much easier to sin. Really good. What else is different about that makes it easier for us to sin? So you remove that personal accountability. Jason has a comment.
Well, I'm walking to Jason. I'll say the one thing too is it's in your hand whether you're sinning or not. Say you're just hopping on Facebook. Say you're Googling something for research or whatever. Everything is, you are inundated with sinful things. Yeah. You're not looking for them. They're shoved in your face at all times. No matter where you are, no matter what you're on, no matter what you're looking for, it's just constantly bombarding you. So what that is doing is it's desensitizing you to it. Very good. On a basis that we don't really pay attention to much anymore.
Yeah. Good, Jason.
Yeah, part of my comment was going to be similar to those lines is, they've designed these things now to where, everything tracks everything that you do. If Beth looked at, I don't know, some dresser or something like that online, and all of a sudden I got 85 emails about all these different available dressers everywhere on planet Earth. So it is designed to distract you. It's designed in order to get you to continue to stare at the screen, more screen time, more screen time. And that takes it away from the time where we could be helping a brother or a sister in Christ. We could be getting our Bible study lesson ready. We could be thinking about, how we could be better parents or interacting with our children. There's just so many other better uses of our time, but it's just like, anymore with like the food, like McDonald's food. It's designed, even though it's not good for you, to be very tasty, to keep you wanting to buy it, even though it's not good for you. And the internet anymore is the exact same way. Yeah. It's designed to keep our faces in the screens as long as possible, and more so. And I did a sermon on it, maybe, I don't know, it was about a year ago or so, and we think that it's mainly a problem with people of the younger generation. Between the ages of 50 and 75, they're still spending about an average of 6 hours on the internet a day. Mm-hmm. It's hard to believe that, but the number of times you check your email, the number of times you went to Facebook, when you looked at that vacation home in Boca Raton, whatever. But the idea is that, they're spending an exorbitant amount of time on the internet. And if you want to know how much time you're doing, there's an easy setting on your phone. Yeah. Maybe you want to turn it on and see how much time you spend on it, or maybe you don't. But think about how much more we could have grown as Christians in that time if the FaceTime would have been our face in the Bible time. Or our face helping a brother who is in need, that kind of thing. So it makes it very easy to sin that way nowadays.
And in question number 4, the dangers online, it brings up Ephesians chapter 5:15. Look carefully how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. And again, if I say how much time am I on the internet, I mean, honestly, how much time am I not on the internet? It's literally from the time I sleep to the time that I wake up. I mean, I know more than wake up than I'm trying to figure out what the weather is. I mean, so the internet at this point is just a foundation like electricity to us. We could have this conversation about electricity. It's just a fundamental service. Again, I think it comes back to these bigger issues as Christians, knowing that this thing does take away some of those things that prevented sin in the past. Once I acknowledge that, how do I handle my time? How do I handle having that available, having this stuff shoved in my face, not being accountable in some way for what I do on this earth? Ryan mentioned pornography and fornication, rampant online. Again, these are things that have always been sinful, but they're just more accessible. Jason, you made some comments. How many have seen this documentary? See a few hands raised about the social dilemma. If you have not seen this and you have Netflix, I highly recommend you watch it. It talks about what the social media engine is, how it works, and how these captains of those industries won't let their own families on. And again, it's just a perspective. And when it first hit me, it really made me step back and think. And maybe you were the same way. I am not proposing that everything's evil about the internet, right? Any more than I would about electricity. So we see unproductive behavior, we see pornography. What other sins come out then when these barriers are removed? What are those other dangers? Jason?
Well, one obvious one is idolatry. It makes it very easy to place, just as I was saying earlier, it makes it very easy to place your time on YouTube watching your funny cat videos.
Yeah.
You know, it's how much of your time is being spent towards these other things. And some of that is, you've made mention of these different chat rooms and so on and so forth. I mean, you think about, young kids who are online on some of the gaming consoles.
Yeah.
And some of the things that they hear in those rooms you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But, it makes it easy to want to stay on that gaming console. Idolatry, everything is coming before God. Mm-hmm. So, there's a host of things that come along with it, but certainly idolatry is probably the easiest one to not, to slip under the radar, because it's designed to make you not, kind of like no clocks in a casino.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like the idea is designed to make you not notice
Yeah.
how much you're putting everything else in front of it.
Absolutely. And there's also that self-idolatry too. I mean, again, I wasn't in the selfie generation. It still feels unnatural for me to want to duck face and take a picture of myself and show it to you. Like there's something gross about that to me, because that's just not how I was raised. Is it wrong? Absolutely not. But you can have this culture of idolizing self. I don't think anybody, especially who grew up with a tablet in their hand, really thought about how different that was from what we did before. But that's just not something we did. Is it wrong to talk about your life and to enjoy good things? No. But at the same time, Humblebrags, how many of you have seen the Humblebrag in the comments? Man, I just feel so out of shape. I've been running every morning this week. I just feel really bad. Right? You did the eye roll. That's exactly a Humblebrag, right? I'm telling you something bad about myself so I can emphasize something good. What is that? That's pride. So if you want to look at what is the internet and what does it help us do, it's the same sins that we've always had in front of us. Pride of life, right? The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and all those are still present here. That feeling of the anonymity, the removal of shame and taking that barrier out of the way. I remember driving down 65 to go see friends at Western Kentucky or whatever, and you've just got these huge patches of interstate. And I remember the first time I saw it, these adult road signs, adult, so many miles, and then you see this nasty looking shack off to the side of the road, and I'm thinking, even if you wanted to, who would do it? I mean, that is such you're there, they see you there. When that's gone, what all kinds of things are you willing to do when that's gone? Rita mentioned about the kind of way we talk to people. Again, it goes back to that behavior policy. In Ephesians chapter, scroll back up. Philippians chapter 4 was another one that was in section 5. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is pure, just, lovely, commendable, excellent, worthy of praise. I haven't done this myself, but go look at my own Facebook feed. Like, how many of the things that I put on social media would be described by those adjectives? Or is it complaining about the food or the travel or the politics or whatever it is? That's the kind of stuff we're supposed to be using or talking about and spending our time and our brain power on. Is that what kind of things we're talking about publicly in the world, whether physically or digitally? It's all the same in that regard. Go ahead, Jason.
Beth texted me that it's easy to become a stumbling block for other people and not realize even sometimes your impact.
Absolutely.
And very easy to get involved with social gossiping on the internet. So
absolutely, and that's another one I think on that list as well. That gossip, it's part of that culture of the internet and of social media. Gene, go ahead.
I tell you what, with what we're talking about, the problem there You put that with the problem today of marriages, those two, because for future generations, no parents, no dad, or no mom, that combination
Yeah,
is damage.
absolutely. And so when I look at this, go ahead, Todd, I think about those underlying issues. It's not the internet. It's the underlying issues that are causing it to make it easier, removing the barriers. Go ahead, Todd.
Well, and of course, in today's culture, the cancel culture, things of that, people have, this stuff is around forever. People have said something, 5 years ago on the internet, and then now it's coming back to bite them.
Yeah.
And it, some of us, think, well, that doesn't seem bad, but, especially around politics, and stuff like that, we may agree with it, but unfortunately now they can't get a job because of it, or they lose a job because of it, And I've never been on Facebook, and I've been tempted a couple times maybe, but now that I'm a state employee, it's like there's no way.
I'll create
Because
another profile for that guy,
definitely
yeah.
come back to bite me.
Right.
So it is just one of those things that people, I think, tend to say things maybe in the heat of the moment or whatever. They need to step back and cool off before they say something, because once that's out there, I know what little I know, you can delete the post, but somebody can save it or something, and it'll come back and get them later.
Yeah, I mean, Snapchat was wonderful, right? Because it goes away, and unless somebody screenshots it, when they see it immediately, and then it gets passed around, there's no difference. It doesn't go away in that regard. I think about some of the things you talk about, desensitization, the things that are there. We have respectable theft on the internet. I mean, I grew up in the Napster days. Napster was a file sharing service where you would download music for free and never have to pay for it. I had thousands upon thousands of songs. And I remember that day where it's like, wow, I have no right to these. But I really don't want to lose them. I mean, I fought myself to delete those files. But, they didn't give me a way to do it, and I really I'd buy it if they'd let me. This is before they would let you buy it. I'd buy it if they'd let me, so it's okay to have it. Or I could have seen that movie, I just missed it, so I'll just go ahead and download it and put it in my library, right? It's respectable theft, we understand. And so, again, all these temptations are there, pride and gossip, sexual and crude comments. Again, who sees it? Well, I'm just sending it to, just send it to Julian, he thinks it funny. He does. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Ryan.
I think if you could sum all of these things up into one word, it would just simply be convenience. I think that's really what it boils down to, because all of the stuff is so convenient to get to. What's done in the darkness is so convenient when it's right in front of you that, like you said, the shame and the desensitizing and all those things. And the other aspect I was thinking about is how we have lost, I don't know how to say it correctly, we've lost the sense of search on our own. Okay, so if I'm trying to, what was that verse? I just type it into Google real quick and find it. Instead of looking in the Bible for it or what I should know, I rely on the internet to pop those things back up, or to remind me, instead of me remembering. My grandpa joked with me the other day that 15 years ago, all of us would remember the phone numbers of our best friend, of our mom and dad, of our neighbor, or whatever. I can't even tell you hers half the time. You know what I mean? We just get so reliant on this technology that it's scary when it's gone. What are we going to do?
And I know people felt that way about, electricity and everything else. I mean, I know some of that is common to those changes, but at the same time, when I look at some of the impacts, if I don't know what it means to have a one-on-one positive relationship the way I used to, right? It's all texting, and we don't even enjoy that face-to-face. What happens when you sin against me, or vice versa, and now I have to have a face-to-face, period, number one. And two, about a really tough topic where emotions are high and people can get their feelings hurt. What's the tendency? What are you most likely to do? I want to have the conversation. Or I'll complain to somebody else on social media about it. Right? And so, again, it is losing that. So I want to kind of shift then into that fifth question. I've got two things here. We had a conversation in our class about music that you listen to, and you guys had the same one out here. And the first thing I said, I had to get honest with myself. Like when I hear music that has language in it or content in it, I'm not talking about the rules that are like pie in the sky. Like what are the rules I'm living by today? Because only when I recognize what I do today can I make changes for something different tomorrow. And whatever your sin, that's how it works. If you want to change from what you're doing today to something tomorrow, you've got to be honest with yourself about what you're doing today and how often you're doing it, what your triggers are, and what that is, so that you know how to fight those triggers. So when I talk about rules, what are your rules today to prevent these sins? Not the internet, but anonymity and gossip and pornography. Like, what are the things that you do to prevent those sins from arising back in your life? Todd?
I believe the Bible refers to it as repentance, to turn from, to turn away.
Absolutely.
Are we making a change, or are we just going along?
Absolutely. I know there's a couple online. Actually, the camera's red. I hope it's working.
One of the things that I don't do, I don't disagree with people online. There's never any good that comes of it. I have seen people post stuff that, I got to be honest, I thought that is wrong. That is something a Christian should not be saying. Does it do that? Does it do any good for me to type that into the comments? It doesn't.
Right.
You move on. If it's something you need to speak to someone about, maybe you need to pick up the phone or whatever.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it doesn't do any good to be drawn into that.
Absolutely. And I remember, I forget if it was Halbrook or who it was I was talking to one time, and they talked about Jehovah's Witnesses believing in the kingdom being X, Y, and Z. He's like, I don't waste my time on that. If we can't agree on what it takes to get to heaven, period, to be saved, then why am I going to waste my time talking about what you think the kingdom is? Let's start with the thing that matters first. And there are all kinds of little debates that we can get drawn into here and there. But if that soul doesn't have the gospel salvation, then it's not that I'm wasting my time. I don't mean that. There's good value study there. But if I'm not saving their soul and I'm just picking about the jots and tittles in the Bible, what am I accomplishing here? And so there are times where it's the right move to avoid that argument to get to the deeper argument in the right forum where we can actually have these conversations. Time is slipping away. We're about 15 minutes out. I don't want to draw it to a close, but I want to look at this in practical terms. How do you maintain your purity, really, in the face of these dangers? And I think the biggest one is, as Ryan put it so succinctly, it's convenience, it's anonymity, it's always there. One of the podcasts I was listening to, and I don't remember which one, Sean, or I'd tell you because Sean's my new podcast buddy. One of the podcasts I was listening to, they talked about 3 seconds. 3 seconds is all it takes to change a behavior. If you can make that thing you want to do 3 seconds more convenient than the thing that you really don't want to get caught up doing, then you'll make the change. It's just more convenient. So, for example, I love ice cream. Could I make the ice cream 3 seconds farther away and the fruit and things that I actually do enjoy 3 seconds closer? So when I open the door, it's the thing I see. Right? It's that very concept. There are ways that we can put some rules in place and some barriers in place where we can make better choices. And the first one I think about is, number one, surround yourself with good friends. Good friends. I don't mean friends. I don't mean, followers. I don't mean any of that. Proverbs 27 verse 6 says, the wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy, multiple kisses. An enemy will give you multiple kisses. Oh, they'll praise that wonderful thing you posted and how wonderful you are. But if you're messing up, they're not going to point it out. And so when I talk about surrounding yourself, surround yourself with people who love you so much that they'll tell you the thing you need to hear and know that it's probably going to tick you off for a few weeks. And you might give them the silent treatment. But eventually, you can come back and have that friendship again. That's who I need to surround myself with. Good friends who can tell before I can tell that I'm wrapped up into something in my brain, who can call me out on it, and I might be angry. But I know they're right. Where are those friends in my life? And so in order to develop those friendships, I've got to share more than a couple thumbs can put out. And I know that, and I'm falling victim of that too, in this culture that we're all in right now, that the only time we truly get together is these special moments here and there, but then even on Sundays and on Wednesdays, it's still that difference that we feel. Not everybody's able to be in. And so surrounding yourself with people who will call you out on your fault, who care more about your soul than your ego. Go ahead, Gene.
I feel like that we, especially if we're trying to follow Christ, be a Christian, we know basically what's right and what's wrong. In other words, if you put up our two columns, right and wrong, we inside, we know. But the thing is, we get careless and we don't make that decision.
Absolutely.
We know that it's right that we should have our kids in at night and they're not out at 12 o'clock. We know that it's right for parties or things that they go to is wrong. But we kind of get soft. I mean, we just don't hold to it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I look at life in this way that you have right and you have wrong, and there's this better category, right? There are things that we know that are not wrong, but we also know that there are things we could do better, that we can not get so close to that line that we're just not concerned about going in, stepping into wrong, that we are truly trying to do better things for ourselves and protect ourselves. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, the Bible tells us not to set any unwholesome thing before our eyes, or don't let any corrupt communication, pour forth from our mouth, but that which is good for edification. So a good way to maintain purity is set it against the Bible standard. For instance, would you want that YouTube video playing in the middle of a church service? Would you be embarrassed that they heard some of the things that were going on that?
Right.
Would you want your favorite song that you're going to play in your car on the way home? Would you play the same song around your church friends?
Yeah.
The standard that we have for ourselves while we're here in worship on Sunday, the rest of the things that we put before our eyes, the rest of the speech that comes out of our mouth should match the same type of thing that we would put before our eyes or come out of our mouth on a Sunday when we're gathered together with our brethren.
Absolutely.
And if it's not, then those things need to be pushed to the side. Jesus says, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. If your hand causes you to steal, cut it off. None of those things that cause us to be impure are worth our salvation or are worth our soul. So if we want to maintain our purity, just don't be around it.
Absolutely. And that really ties into that know your thing. Now, when I was looking for temptation pictures, ice cream for me was one of the first things that my eye just went boom. That's my thing. Like, I know that's my thing, right? What's your thing? Jason talks about, staying away from that thing, not pluck your eye out if you need to. So if your phone in your pocket at a certain time of day, and that's why I talk about what's your triggers, what's the time when you were tempted to do this? If that needs to change, then get your phone out of your pocket, put it 3 seconds further, or 12 or 30, and put it over there so that when you know that's my trigger time or that's my trigger circumstance, I'm not going to be as tempted to do that. Whatever it is. Again, this is not just, I know when we talk about internet, pornography is the one that comes up so often, but it's all these sins where anonymity reigns, where convenience hits us right between the eyes. So know your thing, and when you know your thing and you realize you've actually succumbed to it, don't blame your circumstances, blame your heart. Blame what actions you took. And I think that's important for us. But again, if I put this chain together, I'm surrounding myself with people who care about my soul more than my ego. I'm acknowledging what my temptations are, when it happens and how it happens, so that I can try to set up these rules and barriers to myself to avoid them. And then when it does happen, why did it happen? Right? We always talk about doing that post-analysis, that's post-mortem. Let's go figure out what happened. Why did I follow the trigger that time? Don't lose that step so you can avoid it next time. And ultimately, confess your sins to whom? To one another. And this is one of the things that I look at when I kind of back up from this lesson. That very first step of surrounding myself with those people, I have found, and I'm assuming many of you have as well, when I was a teenager, man, I had lots of close friends. I mean, people that I had deep conversations with at camp, deep conversations in the parking lot here, over here, over here, over here, right? Tons of friends. And over the years, that has just diminished and diminished and diminished. Now, some of that's good and natural, that my wife truly is my best friend. But where's that other 3 or 4 that are more than acquaintances, more than guys that I see on a few Sundays and Wednesdays, but that we actually have a friendship that we carry on outside these 4 walls? I don't feel like I'm there yet. And I don't mean that there aren't worthy people of having those friendships with. It's like I've become desensitized to the need. In order for me to maintain purity, in order for me to have a relationship, again, beyond this, that I can truly talk to somebody about, I've got to have that friend so that I can talk to them about my struggles. For those of you, especially fathers in the class, that was part of Kindred's hope for us to have the men's class, is that we are using that as a forum to share with each other. Yep, we have a book, and we'll go through the lesson, but if you want to get off topic, let's do it. Because we do have those struggles, and I appreciate that. So when I look at what it's going to take to maintain purity, I look at what is that underlying issue. It's not the internet, it's not the electricity, it's not running water. None of those things cause me to sin. But what they do is remove the barriers where every man is tempted by his own lusts. And that's when he succumbs. Go ahead, Kendrick.
And one good thing, too, that I find myself asking, and what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? And what are you going to do with your phone? What are you going to do with the internet? What are you going to do with the money that you make? What are you going to do with the people you surround yourself with? What are you going to do with the friendships that you could potentially have? What are you going to do with the confrontation that you might face? What are you going to do with your raising your children? Kids, what are you going to do with your time in school? What are you going to do with your time at home with your family? Yeah. And that's a question you have to ask. And is it going to cost you your salvation? Is it responsible? Is it scriptural? Is it going to cost you your salvation?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Gene.
I was just thinking, life was different before TV. I mean, you come home, you put on your play clothes, you go out and play and shoot marbles and this or that. No TV. I mean, life was, it was great. And people today might say, it had to be boring. No. But TV has done, TV I think is not hurting as much as the internet, but TV really, changed the whole society.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I remember eating dinner, you ate dinner, and my parents never ate at the dinner table with us. They were always in the living room watching TV. My sister and I sat at the table. So whether it's the TV, the internet, your whatever it is, it's how you're going to use it.
Yeah. I just wanted to say I'm glad that you brought up the point of don't blame your circumstance, because this society is a victim mentality society, and it is scary. It is never our fault. It is always, you can always find someone on the internet to support whatever you believe in, whatever you did or didn't do. The victim mentality is something, if you don't instill that in your children, it will take this country down eventually.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. So that connectedness, that is a feigned connectedness. Like, we are connected with people all over the world. How connected? I remember the first time I had a chat with somebody in Israel over this thing called Internet Relay Chat. There was only a 13-second delay between the times we would type things to each other. It was insanely fast. How connected am I to that person? It's an acquaintance at best, and I don't even know that they fall into the acquaintance category. The other thing I want to make sure we emphasize, and it's been said, but this is not a teenager problem. It's funny when I hear, I see it in my family, right? I'm in the living room, I sit on my computer, I've always got my legs up, whether I'm at work or I'm at home. That's just how I work, and I'm on that computer really until about 11, and it's like, okay, we're done. My kids, they tend to go in their room and they're on their phones, right? Megan does her thing. She's the most paper-driven one of us, but she has school stuff she has to grade. And so she does that. But even when I say, well, what'd you do at Grandma's? Well, I mean, she was there on her tablet the whole time. It's not just kids. It's not just parents. It's not just grandma and it's all of us find the digital pacifier. And I think that's one of the phrases that came from that social dilemma. We have found ways to occupy our mind, whether it was TV, whether it was the internet, whether it was a phone call, whatever that thing was. And I think, to Ryan's point, what will destroy us? I think that blame culture, destroys us. I think Satan destroys us by just making us busy on something else and not on him. Kendrick,
And I'll say too. So I was in Death by Zoom training today, and I get a text message from Amanda, and the two littles are supposed to be homeschooling. Well, they're nowhere to be found, and they're far enough away that they can't hear anybody. So and they came back just muddy and and a mess. They weren't watching TV. They weren't on a tablet. They weren't on electronic. But they still weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. Right. So whether it's outside or inside or on your phone or whatever it is.
You can find time to occupy.
Exactly. You're going to find something to occupy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gene.
I remember some years ago, one of my sons, they drove 1,000 miles to come, and he's sitting there and his wife, 3 kids, and they're on their cell phone thing or whatnot. And I'm sitting there and I'm, why did they come? Why did they come? And I'm biting my tongue because I don't want to start preaching.
Yeah.
But, and we weren't talking, we weren't visiting. They were on their computer.
Yeah. Absolutely. Todd, go ahead.
I was just thinking, the old term, idle hands, the devil's workshop, that type of thing. And I knew that there was verses, in the Bible about it. Well, I was amazed at how many times idle is mentioned, and it's usually not in a good sense. Mm-hmm. Matthew 12:36, idle words. Matthew 20. Verse 3, standing idle in the marketplace. 20, verse 6, standing idle all day. Idle tales, idle talk, idle wandering about from house to house, not only idle, but also gossips and busybodies.
Yeah.
It's just every one of them, check that box, check that box.
Absolutely. Well, before the class comes to a close, Mark's going to have our last word here. I just want to thank you guys for all the comments you've made. You made this one easy one to facilitate. I don't know if I taught anything, but thank you guys for all of that. Mark, go ahead.
The other aspect of this, to flip it over, there are some great things we can do with the internet too.
Thank you.
And instead of looking for the things that are problems for us, look for the things that are good. Go there. Use some of those things. Just thinking, we mentioned the other day, there's a lot of great sermons.
Yeah.
I can go listen to now. There's a lot of videos that are instructive videos, helpful things. Some good stuff out there as well.
Absolutely.
But so we can use it for good as well as we can use it for bad. And it's like I said, it's like a tool. I can take a wrench and I can fix a car, or I can beat somebody to death with it. It's whatever I want to do with the tool.
Right.
So I'm the one responsible for how I use the tool.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, thank you for that, and I appreciate all your comments tonight, and look forward to sitting with you again.